I first met Lily on a cloudy afternoon at the local coffee shop. She was hard to miss, sitting by the window, her sketchbook open and her pencil moving in swift, confident strokes. She was only 16 but carried herself with the quiet determination of someone who had big dreams. Art was her passion. It poured out of her in every sketch, every line, every shade. Lily often visited the art supply store a few blocks away. It was her treasure trove, the place where she'd spend hours marveling at paints, brushes, and canvases, imagining all the things she could create. She wasn't rich, far from it. Every penny she spent on art supplies came from babysitting jobs or selling small pieces to friends and family. But her passion was so infectious that even those who barely knew her wanted to support her. She was saving up for a set of expensive watercolors that she had been eyeing for weeks. Every time she walked into the store, she'd glance at them longingly. One day, she finally had enough money. With her heart racing and her savings in her pocket, she walked into the store, unaware that this visit would change everything. The art supply store had always been a special place for Lily. Walking through its aisles, filled with rows of neatly arranged paints, brushes, and canvases, felt like stepping into a world of endless possibilities. Each visit was a source of excitement and inspiration. But this time, her visit was different. She had a goal, a dream she had worked tirelessly to achieve. The watercolor set, displayed behind the glass counter, had been calling to her for weeks. It was the kind of set professional artists used, the kind she had dreamed of owning ever since she first picked up a paintbrush. Lily walked up to the counter with the watercolor set in her hands, her heart racing with anticipation. She was beaming, unable to contain her excitement. This was the moment she had been waiting for. Carefully, she placed the box on the counter and pulled out the small bundle of cash she had saved from babysitting jobs and selling her sketches to friends. But the joy on her face quickly faded as the store owner, Mr. Benson, looked at her with a cold, disapproving glare. He was an older man, perhaps in his late 60s, with a neatly trimmed beard and a demeanor that could make even the boldest customer hesitate. For decades, Mr. Benson had run the store with an air of authority, and while his shop was popular among local artists, he was known for being particular about who he considered real artists. "You can't afford that," he said abruptly, his voice flat and dismissive. Lily blinked, caught off guard by his tone. She hesitated, then held out her carefully counted bills with trembling hands. "I've been saving up for weeks," she said softly, her voice tinged with both pride and nervousness. But Mr. Benson didn't even glance at the money. Instead, he crossed his arms and looked down at her with a mix of skepticism and disdain. "This isn't a toy," he said sharply, his words cutting through her like a knife. "It's for serious artists, not for kids to waste." The words stung more than Lily could have imagined. Her cheeks flushed with embarrassment as the weight of his judgment sank in. She felt the eyes of other customers on her, their curiosity and pity only adding to her humiliation. "But I'm serious about art," she tried to explain, her voice breaking slightly. "I've been practicing every day. Her words trailed off as Mr. Benson waved his hand dismissively, as if her efforts were inconsequential. "Come back when you're older," he said curtly, turning his attention to another customer. "And when you take art seriously." Lily stood there for a moment, frozen in place, her grip tightening on the bills in her hand. She wanted to argue, to prove him wrong, but the lump in her throat made it impossible to speak. Blinking back tears, she placed the watercolor set back on the counter and turned to leave. The bell above the door jingled as she stepped out into the chilly afternoon air. Tears stung her eyes, and she quickly wiped them away, not wanting anyone to see her cry. The walk home felt longer than usual, the weight of rejection pressing heavily on her chest. She clutched her sketchbook tightly, as if it were the only thing anchoring her in that moment. By the time she reached her room, she let the tears fall freely. She had always believed that hard work and passion were enough to overcome any obstacle, but Mr. Benson's words had shaken that belief. For the first time, she wondered if she was chasing a dream that others thought she wasn't worthy of. But as she sat on her bed, staring at her sketchbook, a flicker of determination began to replace the sadness. Mr. Benson's words had hurt, but they had also ignited something inside her, a need to prove him wrong. She wiped her tears, opened her sketchbook, and picked up her pencil. If he didn't see her as a serious artist, she would show him and the world that she was. That evening, Lily sat on the edge of her bed, staring blankly at her sketchbook. Mr. Benson's harsh words replayed in her mind like a broken record, each repetition cutting deeper than the last. No matter how much she tried to shake it off, the weight of his judgment lingered. For the first time, she questioned herself. Was she just a child playing pretend? Did her love for art mean nothing if someone like Mr. Benson couldn't take her seriously? The sadness washed over her in waves. She felt small, dismissed, and utterly insignificant. Her chest ached with the sting of rejection, and tears spilled freely down her cheeks. But as the hours ticked by, something began to shift within her. The sadness slowly gave way to a spark of defiance. Who was he to decide whether or not she was an artist? She thought about all the late nights she had spent sketching by the dim glow of her desk lamp, the countless hours she had poured into perfecting her technique. She thought of her grandmother, the person who had first encouraged her to draw, who had always told her that art was her gift to the world. Mr. Benson didn't know her story, her struggles, or her passion, and she refused to let him define her worth. Lily wiped her tears and reached for her supplies. Her brushes were old, the bristles slightly frayed. Her paints were nearly gone, some colors reduced to nothing but stubborn streaks at the bottom of their containers. But she didn't care. What she lacked in materials, she would make up for in heart. Taking a deep breath, she began to paint. She decided to create a portrait of her late grandmother, the woman who had always believed in her when no one else did. As she worked, memories flooded back. Her grandmother's warm smile, her gentle hands, her soft voice encouraging Lily to never stop dreaming. Every brushstroke felt like a conversation with her, a way to pour her love and longing onto the canvas. Hours passed, but Lily didn't stop. Her hand ached, and her eyes grew tired, but she couldn't tear herself away from the painting. It was as if all the emotions she had bottled up, the pain, the love, the anger, the determination, were spilling out in vibrant colors. By the time she finished, the first light of dawn was creeping through her window. Lily stepped back to look at her work, her breath catching in her throat. The portrait was unlike anything she had ever created before. Her grandmother's face seemed to come alive on the page, every line and shadow capturing her spirit. The colors were rich and full of depth, each hue carefully chosen to evoke warmth and emotion. It was raw, honest, and deeply personal. Her heart raced as she took a picture of the painting and posted it on social media with a simple caption: "For my grandmother, who always believed in me." At first, the post garnered a few likes and comments from friends and family, all praising her talent. Lily appreciated their words, but she didn't expect anything more. Then something extraordinary happened. The likes began to multiply. People she didn't know started commenting, sharing, and tagging others. Some called her work breathtaking, while others admitted that it moved them to tears. Artists and strangers alike marveled at the emotion and skill in her painting, expressing disbelief that someone so young could create something so profound. Within hours, her post had gone viral. Messages flooded her inbox, with some people asking if she took commissions, and others simply wanting to congratulate her. A well-known art blogger shared her post, calling her a rising star in the art world. Lily could hardly believe what was happening. Her phone buzzed constantly with notifications, but what stayed with her most were the heartfelt comments. "This is one of the most beautiful pieces I've ever seen. You captured so much emotion. It's incredible. Your grandmother would be so proud of you." As the sun climbed higher in the sky, Lily sat by her window, holding her sketchbook close. For the first time in a long while, she felt something more powerful than doubt. She felt seen. She felt validated. But most of all, she felt proud of herself. Not because of the likes or shares, but because she had proven, to herself and to the world, that her art was worth something. The watercolor set she couldn't buy? It didn't matter anymore. She had painted her masterpiece without it, and in doing so, she had turned her pain into power, creating something that touched the hearts of countless people. It didn't take long for the story of Lily's viral artwork to reach Mr. Benson. It was all anyone in the town seemed to be talking about. Customers in his store buzzed with excitement, some even pulling up her post on their phones to show him. "Have you seen what that girl painted?" they'd ask, their eyes lighting up with awe. "It's extraordinary." At first, Mr. Benson didn't think much of it. Viral moments came and went, after all. But as the days passed, it became impossible to ignore. Her story had been picked up by a local journalist who wrote a heartfelt article about her journey. The piece highlighted her perseverance, her raw talent, and the emotional depth of her work. But it also mentioned something else: the humiliating encounter she had faced in Mr. Benson's store. The words were there in black and white for everyone to read: how she had been dismissed, belittled, and turned away when all she wanted was a chance. Mr. Benson read the article twice, his face growing hotter with each passing word. By the time he finished, he felt a gnawing pit of regret in his stomach. People were talking about him too, not in admiration, but in judgment. Some questioned how he could have been so cruel to a young girl chasing her dreams. Others vowed never to set foot in his store again. Mr. Benson prided himself on being a pillar of the community, but now his reputation was in tatters. Feeling the weight of the backlash, he decided he needed to make things right. Early one morning, he picked up the phone and called Lily's house. Her mother answered, her tone polite but distant. "I'd like to speak with Lily," Mr. Benson said, his voice hesitant. When Lily's mother relayed the message, Lily sat quietly for a moment, her face unreadable. Then she shook her head. "He didn't believe in me when it mattered," she said softly, her voice steady but tinged with sadness. "I don't need his validation now." Mr. Benson had offered to gift her the watercolor set for free as a way to make amends, but to Lily, it felt hollow. The rejection she had faced wasn't just about the art supplies. It was about being dismissed as if her passion and dreams were meaningless. A free gift couldn't erase the hurt or the lessons she had learned. Instead, Lily decided to take her savings and shop elsewhere. She visited a small, independently run art store on the other side of town. The owner, a kind woman named Mrs. Rivera, had always been encouraging. She greeted Lily with a warm smile as she walked in, her eyes lighting up when Lily showed her the viral painting on her phone. "This is absolutely stunning, Lily," Mrs. Rivera said, her voice filled with genuine admiration. "You have a gift. I'm so proud of you." Hearing those words felt like a balm to Lily's heart. She browsed the shelves, picking out new paints, brushes, and paper with Mrs. Rivera's guidance. As she was checking out, Mrs. Rivera had an idea. "You know," she said thoughtfully, "we've been wanting to feature local artists in the store. How would you feel about displaying some of your work here? I think people would love to see it." Lily's eyes widened. "Really? You'd do that for me?" "Of course," Mrs. Rivera replied with a smile. "Your talent deserves to be celebrated." The offer meant more to Lily than she could put into words. She agreed, and soon, her painting of her grandmother was proudly displayed in the store's front window. It quickly became a talking point in the community, drawing even more attention to her talent. As for Mr. Benson, he watched from afar as Lily's star continued to rise. His apology had come too late, and Lily had moved on, stronger and more determined than ever. He could only hope that the next time a young dreamer walked into his store, he'd see them for who they truly were: a person with potential, passion, and a story worth believing in. Lily's story didn't end there. The viral post opened doors she'd never imagined. An art gallery reached out, offering to showcase her work. A local charity commissioned her for a mural. And through it all, Lily stayed humble, pouring her heart into every piece she created. Mr. Benson's store, on the other hand, saw a decline in customers. Word had spread about how he'd treated Lily, and many of his regulars chose to take their business elsewhere. He tried to change his ways, but the damage was done. As for Lily, she continued to grow as an artist, her work inspiring countless others. She proved that talent and determination could shine through even the darkest moments. And though she never returned to Mr. Benson's store, she carried the lesson with her. Believe in yourself, even when others don't. In the end, Lily's story wasn't just about art. It was about resilience, self-worth, and the power of turning pain into beauty. Hey there, amazing viewer. If you enjoyed this story and it touched your heart, don't forget to like this video. It really helps us out. We'd love to hear your thoughts. so drop a comment below and let us know how this story inspired you. Make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on more heartfelt, inspiring stories like this one. And if you know someone who could use a little motivation or joy today, don't hesitate to share this video with them. Your support means the world to us. Thank you for being part of our journey.